In this video I would like to talk about the French presidential election, and today's news. I will try to be faithful to my own motto, namely to have a Hegelian interpretation of the manifestation of spirits, which appears in the daily news like everywhere else. So the French president Macron made a letter to the French to explain that he wants to become a candidate to his own re-election. And on the front page there's the face of Vladimir Putin, and it says the face of war. And I've made videos explaining that out of eternal logical necessity, it's in the very essence of logic, that Vladimir Putin is not free. So we are already in a apocalyptic Christian view of the end times, where the devil, what people call the devil, appears, and now the devil is Vladimir Putin, because he's the one only responsible for all the suffering and misery of mankind. But from a Hegelian perspective, the cause of all suffering is what he calls the negative, and I've talked about it in other videos, so yeah. So he says, Macron speaking, in these times of crisis, we could use it as a means to start a new start of a new era for France and for Europe. So that's already on the front page, a dialectical sentence, the idea that a crisis is that which enables you to develop your own being and to reconsider things and to develop and to grow, and that's dialectic. He said that this presidential campaign will be different to all other. It won't look like any other. Not any topic is imposed, but strictly speaking, I just continue. He says that when a president is candidate to his own re-election, the debate turns into inevitably a referendum. A referendum is, I don't know if it exists in English, probably, is when you have to vote for or against a person or a project or a law or a constitution, whatever. But the true speculative meaning of all this is that God, through each singular consciousness, is becoming conscious of itself. Spirit is rising, to express it. And the question is not, should Macron be re-elected president of France, but the question is, should the entire eternal circular process of separation from God and reunification with God, the entire cyclical movement of the universe emanating from the one, coming back into the one, should we start that all over again? And this is the question that spirit, becoming conscious of itself, will have to answer. And in truth, there is no other answer than to say yes, because there is no other choice, because the entire process of movement and evolution and growth and decay is a dialectical process. And in dialectics, when you say no, you say yes, and when you say yes, you say no, and that's the entire dialectical process. So, yeah. He says that the growing crisis, international crisis, and the fear of the nuclear threat is so pervading that the French will have to modify their way of making a choice. And this is this Yin Yang dialectic, that when a threat grows, you care more, and the will to defend and to protect grows within you, and so you are transformed by the negative into something positive. And this is dialectical, and this is happening in each and every single one of us, because we are all one being, and we will all be confronted with the necessity to I'm talking to myself here, to negate the negative and make it something positive. And that's the most difficult thing to do, but that's the entire Hegelian process. Yeah. He said that Putin, not Macron, but the newspaper said that Putin is implacable, is immovable, determined, is is very strong in his determination. Um, but to say that something is determined means you have the will to do something, but what is determined is what is determinate. So when you say I am determined, actually you say that there is an exterior motive pushing you to act the way you do. So Vladimir Putin is determined, but is also determinate in the sense that the entire world history brought the conditions and the determinations which make him act the way he does. And when you hear people say, oh, Vladimir Putin is just crazy, a megalomaniac, out of his mind, if you understood Vladimir Putin, you would understand that the entirety of world history and his own history has determined him to act the way he does. And only God is free. Therefore, only God is responsible for evil. That's it. So yeah, and then he published an official letter to the French. He says, I am a candidate to invent with you. For the past 5 years, we have gone through many crises, terrorism, the COVID pandemia, the return of violence, war in Europe. So Macron has shared suffering and challenges with the French people. But we have confronted the adversity with dignity and brotherhood. We have recreated jobs and decreased unemployment. We have strengthened the police force, the teachers, the public teachers, the not the lawyers, the magistrates, the public judicial clerks. I don't know what's the English word, but whatever. And the army, yeah, and the police. So he wants to offer a right-wing authoritarian but soft authoritarianism to reassure, to give confidence to the people. He will not say, probably he's a leftist who hates these things, but he will adopt a right-wing authoritarian view because people need both the left and the right in order to be balanced. So even the most crazy fanatical leftist and the most crazy right-wing right-wing fanatic need its own opposite to be balanced, and this is the entire process of God. And he says we want to build a powerful Europe capable of defending itself and to wait on the course of history. But this is a dialectical trick, because those who have been familiar with the right-wing sphere know that what the European elites are doing is trying to erase Europe by replacing its people. And when they talk about building Europe, they mean destroying the European people. But the dialectical twist is that the European peoples, the native Europeans, being confronted by their own negation, when you are confronted with the negative, it forces you to negate the negative and to develop and to grow. And this entire process of negation of the European people, although the elites claim that they are doing the opposite, actually they are, because they are forcing, by the radical negation of Europeans, to send them on a spiritual path, on a spiritual development. And I have shown in my other video that the logical conclusion of the European path of spirit leads to cosmotheism, but the most European thought or worldview, which is namely cosmotheism, which is the truth of Europeans, turns into a global incorporating view, which incorporates within itself all that is non-European and transcends the European identity. So when you are a cosmotheist, you are no longer a European, but you carry within yourself all the moments which have led you to be a cosmotheist. And even cosmotheism, as I've shown, is not the truth of all truth. The truth of all truth is absolute idealism, but that's another story. He wants that France becomes independent. That's quite ironic because the French elites have spent the past 60 years trying to make France as dependent as possible by leaving and abandoning its sovereignty. But in truth, the whole process of spirit consists in God making himself dependent and connected and in a mutual reciprocal relationship with another, and to liberate itself from this alienation and this dependence and to become totally independent, to become absolute. So Macron, in his letter to the French, and the entire French history is a moment in the process of the self-sovereignty, the re-establishment of the absolute's self-sovereignty and self-liberation and self-identity. He talks about the threats on democracies, the rise of inequalities, climate change, the demographic transition, the technological transformation. The demographic transition has been brought about by the French elites to negate part of the French people, but they were not acting. When you understand from an absolute point of view, it was God acting through them. And all these phenomena are interconnected because God is an aristocrat. He wants only the best. But he's also a democrat because he wants and represents the will of the people. That's what I explained in my video about fate, is that God is the acceptance of all thoughts from everywhere, which is kind of a democratic election. And God wants to be free and equal at the same time. And you can only be equal to another, which is not yourself. But if you are equal to the not self, it means that the self is a part of you. And the only liberation is to be at home in the other. And this is what Hegel says about spirit. Spirit is unity with self through the mediation of the other. And yeah, and he said that we have to look at the present with humility. To be humble means to be brought back to the ground, and symbolically it is Christ descending upon earth to be nailed on the cross. And to be lucid about the present is that we should not, that's what I said in my previous video, we should not fantasize about an other world, but we should seek to understand the present, current world. And this is the whole process of Hegel's philosophy, to conceptualize and to try to understand what is, not what should be. And Hegel's philosophy teaches us that what should be is, and what is should be the way it is. There is no other world, and wisdom consists in accepting, understanding, and loving, and these are all interconnected. You can only love what you understand, and understand what you, and only accept what you love, and only love what you accept. That's interconnected. But the purpose of Hegel's philosophy is to make the present intelligible, and the entire world history, the entire process of world history through politics, economics, social institution, leads to the self-consciousness of the entire planet becoming conscious of itself. And this is the spirit of God, and spirit must reconcile itself with itself, which is the most difficult thing to do, but I am trying to bring my modest contribution to that. And yeah.